Good night, Grant. No,
No, keep it open. 4:15 and start this ad hoc meeting concerning elected officials' salaries to order. And we are recording this meeting, not streaming, to apologize, but technical difficulties has prevented us from streaming this live. So instead, this recording will be added on or be uploaded to the city website upon completion of the meeting. The agenda that Denise provided lists 2 items: council committee assignments and rules of procedure review. That is not what this meeting is about, so that I'm taking item number 1 on her agenda off the list. We're here to talk about elected official salaries via ordinance 2023-133, and that's the salaries for the positions of mayor, city auditor, and law director. So I'm going to give my understanding of the history so you guys are know what I know and how we got here. So back in 2018, we passed ordinance 2018-125. I'll pass this around, which set salaries for mayor, auditor, and law director. And included in law director was a ladder in section 7, and that stated the position or how much we would pay based on years of practice, because it's the one position that actually has a requirement. You got to be able to practice law in the state of Ohio in order to be your law director. And in that ordinance, it mentions that the salaries of these elected officials, it sets them in it that says that they will be raised each calendar year thereafter with the same raise provided to the non-union employees of the city of Findlay. That's the same thing that's happening with city council candidates or city council members and with the treasurer and the treasurer. And so that's been in place. The difference with the city council and the treasurer's ordinance is that doesn't have a sunset. 2018-125 says it ends now, and so Denise points out last week, hey, we don't have an ordinance in order to pay these folks for next year. And so in conversation with Denise and Don Essex, with our HR director, and Jeff Wobser, we talked about 2018-125, and so we updated that to create 2023-133 that was given its first reading. And the way we made this, and the way we made the salaries for those is that we took the current salaries that the mayor, the auditor, and the law director are getting paid, and then Don calculated what the raise is based on the non-union, on the raise provided to the non-union employees, and set a base salary then for 2024. In other words, it just continues as if that thing didn't sunset. And in discussions with Don Essex, we talked about, should we adjust the ladder in section 7 for the law director, and should we consider salary surveys on all 3 positions and adjusting accordingly. And then the other thing to keep in mind is Ohio, state of Ohio law says that we can't raise salaries in term. So you can't have a city council get elected and the first thing they do is turn around and give themselves all a big raise. And you can't do the same. You can't do that while you're in term. You cannot raise the salaries for for elected officials. And what we had previously had talked about is that salaries for positions should be set, prior to the primary, so that a person deciding to run for mayor or run for auditor or run for law director understands the compensation that they are going to be in. Said another way, it's not like you could say, oh, I'm going to wait to see what the election results are for this election. And if this person wins, then we're going to change the salary, or that person wins, then we'll change it to something else. So, it's legal, but then you start to get into the question of what the intent of the spirit and intent of the law is. So I kind of think we're kind of in that position, to be quite honest with you. What we should have done is we should have had an ad hoc committee on these three positions prior to the primary. And nobody's fault. We missed it. And so now we're in the so that's kind of where we're at. And the decision for the three of us is kind of I think there's a couple of decisions we have in front of us. Number one, we can go and entertain adjusting the salaries for 2024 for these three positions based on the current market rate for these positions, and then propose an amendment to 2023-133. That's one thing we could do. Alternatively, we could say what they are in the ordinance, which is what they currently are plus the expected raise, 6, and just say we missed this round and let it go. We could also look at adding removing the sunset on 2023-133. I think we say in here someplace that, hey, this is going to go for 4 years and then it's going to expire, and forcing us to go again. That's a conversation. And then the third conversation is what to do with the ladder. Do we look at taking the ladder and adjusting it? And then I think Don is in the 26 plus years of experience. So you could or could not make an adjustment to that, which might, which would or would not affect the law director's salary in 2024 and beyond. But you could also look at adjusting the ladder below 26 years with market rates in mind. So that's the three things that I think the three things that we're looking at. And then Don is here because Don's the guy that does all the work on salary surveys, and so that's it.
Mr. Russell.
Jim, I gotta say, this is a conversation about the auditor's salary.
Excuse me. I realize that, and I know where the conflict of interest lies. There is a couple things that the paymaster need to say, and one of them is a correction to one of your statements, if you're willing to hear.
Please.
Okay. First thing is
it's just no conversation.
No, I don't care about my salary. You guys are going to do what you're going to do. Here's what I had to say. One, the way these wages were calculated is not in line with the way the old ordinance would have calculated. So this is a different calculation for the base. And there's a significant difference between the percentage increase in this one and, for example, council's. Council's increase is going to be 6% going into next year. The second thing is that we're recommending out of our office, you take the table, eliminate section 7, take that table and merge it into section 3, because those two sections could end up in conflict depending on what happens intra-term with anyone who would occupy that position, should anybody ever leave that position early or something unexpected happen. Of course, we're not planning on that, but the way that reads, we wouldn't know what to pay somebody and who the hell would make the decision, because it's about the law director, and the law director is the person that would make the decision. How are they going to make the decision what the wage would be? So if you use a base and insert the table from section 7 into your section A and slide your base up. So maybe you have an A, B, C there. The base is this, or here's the scale. Then here's the base for the current law director based on his experience. And then here's how we'll go from then on.
Okay.
That's the second comment. So those are my comments.
So you're saying that the salary for the 2024 salary of 92861 is not the current mayor's salary plus
Budgeted calculation based on the current ordinance in place, assuming that the sunset had been removed.
okay, what do you believe that number should be?
95566.05.
What should it be for the auditor?
95447.03.
Could you say that one again?
95447.03.
And law director?
I do not have that one. That'd be easy enough to calculate for you.
So Don, with your calculations for the numbers that are in 2023-133, how did you?
3% on top of what they currently make.
Okay.
We have an opinion from the law director that the current salary ordinance in place for city council and the other elected officials, the law director has opined that those salaries go up the same amount that they go up in general. So in 2024, it's going to be 6%, but there is no reset for those elected officials. And that's, he's opined and confirmed that opinion. And that's for the two ordinances in place currently in 2023.
What do you mean there's no reset?
In other words, that when you calculate the base for union and non-union employees, you pull back the salary 3% out of the 6. In other words, the max increase is 3. The elected officials for the city council and for the other elected officials today does not do that. And it is the opinion of the law director that that is the way it is to be calculated, a straight up percentage increase with no back step.
So it's just 6%.
Yeah, and part of that is, the belief goes to the rule you spoke about, Mr. Russell, but it's not just that a salary can go up for elected officials. I can't speak as to his references and reasoning behind his opinion. However, the discussion was that there's an expectation of those elected officials, and you can't raise it up or down. So you can't take a benefit away that has monetary value, or you can't take away or add wages during interterm. So you have some other issues there. But this particular one does not match a elimination of the sunset in the current ordinance, or this one also does not match the continued one the council has in place today that will continue into next year. And both were budgeted based on assuming neither would sunset.
So I don't know that I understand the 6% versus 3%. So the non-union employees are getting a 6% or a 3% raise?
They're getting a 6% raise after their base change is 3%. So in other words, on $100,000, okay, if $100,000 in 2022 was raised to $106,000, the 2023 raise of a payment of $106,000 would then be backed up to a base of 103, and that new base is used to calculate the 2024 wage based on the projected increase of 6%, which council has recommended and administration has recommended. So the base is not 100,000, it's 103,000. The base goes up a 3%. All this has impact on many aspects, particularly with pensionable items. We were not consulted on this. Mike, I'm here to help, not to create a problem for you. So you guys have to decide if you want to try and rewrite this one or if you want to sunset the other one. But in either case, I do think there's value and it would be advantageous to pull your chart in 7. And do you understand what I'm saying there? In other words,
Yep.
Yep, good, okay.
Well, 18,125 is going away, one way or the other. That's,
Yeah.
that's gone. And 2023-133 is the avenue upon which we are working. So,
I did talk to Ginger, about this, because for the salaried people, especially people that had been promoted, so when you look at their base pay, it was different last year. So I said, can I just do 3% instead of,
She would have said you can do whatever you want. We talked about that, yeah. It's the council's purvey and your purvey that's in the ordinance, so. Yeah, we're not looking to influence what you do, we're looking to tell you what you can do. I'm not saying you did it wrong, though. I just said this one doesn't match what we're doing for councils.
so the council's just getting 6% on top of
Yeah.
whatever they
Their current base.
right, instead of 3% taken away.
Yeah. And the treasurer as well.
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's okay. I'm actually grateful that Denise caught this, not just because of the timing of the issue, but because it is an opportunity to clarify and merge 3 and 7 into 1, so we don't have a long-term issue. It's not something any of us thought about. I mean, we really weren't thinking about. I have no knowledge of anything, but the idea is we don't want to have a problem. We don't want anybody to have a problem should something happen. It's all under exposition.
before we talk about merging the two sections, let's just get through the bases mentioned in section 1, 2, and 3, paragraph A, which sets the salaries.
I'll get Don's now.
So,
Excuse me for 1 minute. I'll go get Don's for you. Okay, while you guys are discussing that, that way I'm not in the room while you're talking about it anyway.
yeah, so we say to the non-unit employee who's earning X, a salary of X, you're gonna get paid X plus 6% next year, but your base is only gonna go up X plus 3%.
So it's really 3%. I talked to Ginger, and I did it different. It's a couple pennies off if you do 6% on top of the base and then take 3% off. You can only get, for us, I don't know about elected officials, we can only get up to a 3% increase. That's kind of the top of what we can get. So even if we get 6%, if they say the increase is 6% based on the formula that we use, we can only really get 3% more. So that's what he's talking about, the 6% on top of the base, but you have to take 3% off of that.
Because
Does
we
that
have,
make
we have
sense?
a
I have
governor,
a
we have
formula.
we have a governor on the increase. I mean, there's something that limits the increase.
That was the decision, that they were just, the cap would be 3%. We can never get more than 3%, even though they say that we can only, the cap is 3%. Have you seen the formula that we use? It's the same formula that's used in the union contract.
Yeah, I've seen it a year ago. I mean,
That's never been
recalls
discussed.
this.
Brian, you get the youngest guys.
But what,
It's Don's 42, 8, 13, 52. Yeah, okay.
1, 4, 2, 8,
13, 42. Thanks, Brian.
So, but Don, these numbers you provided in here are based on market value.
No, it's just 3% on top of what they're making in 2023.
And then I asked them, and then I said, round it to a saying, don't go to whatever, I think we rounded it down to the nearest dollar. Well, I'll admit, I'm confused. I don't know if a person earning $100,000 this year earns $103,000 next year or $106,000 next year.
Just the paymaster, he's sitting here.
The way I understand it is you have a 6% increase, but you only get 3 of it, so it'd be 103,000. That's how I understand it.
Am I correct, Jim?
No, the council's getting 6%.
Right,
Oh,
council
yeah.
is, but,
Yeah.
but the others.
The others, you mean union and non-union
Right,
employees?
right.
No. Their base goes up, and then the new 6% goes on top of the new base. There's no straight 3%. Those calculations were provided to council with the salary ordinance.
So if a person made $100,000 in 2023, their 2024 salary is then calculated out.
It's gonna be their 2023.
Which would be, say, 100,000 for each.
So they're gonna go back to the 2022.
So whatever the 2022 rate
They're
was.
gonna take that up 3%. That's the new base. And then the new calculation is based on that base times 6% for 2024 for union and non-union employees. And that's the way it was budgeted. You should have in your council packet with the original pay ordinance, the example. I know it was distributed.
So in order to calculate how much you pay somebody in 2023, you go to their 2022 salary and you add the percent. Or actually, it sounds like you go to the 2021 salary and add the percentage.
For the 2023 rate. For 2024, you go back to the 22 salary and you add that, what, 3%, Jim? Is that right?
3%.
So if somebody made
Permanent, that's the permanent
Yeah.
increase, the 3%.
So if somebody made 100,000 in 2022,
The new base becomes 103 for each.
and then whatever the percentage increase on top of that is what they get.
Yeah.
So if it's 6%,
Yeah.
they would get a 6% increase on 103,000.
103. Yeah, and then depending on their longevity, everything else, there's other factors.
Step increases.
There's steps, longevity, and there's different other things.
Yeah, but we were, this was, they were, when this was created, the intent was whatever the across the board percent increase to the non-union members, that's what you get. No steps, no longevity, none of that, because none of that counts for an elected official.
Hence council straight 6% going into 24.
Let me ask a simple question. There's someplace there is a formula that sets this rate. Do you think we should stick to the formula and set their salaries, the salaries of these 3 positions for 2024? Or should we go look at market rate analysis and potentially adjust them accordingly?
Stay in line with the rest of them. That's I think that's probably the easiest, cleanest way.
I concur. So then the question is, what is that what is that amount? And I'm hearing two different, I think I'm hearing two different numbers from how it's done in the salary calculations versus the Don's explanation. Or is there agreement and I just don't understand it?
I think there's agreement. I think it doesn't always work. So if in 2022, I made $20,000 less because I got promoted at the end of 2022 or 2023, and I go back to 2022 and add 3% to my base and then 6% on top of that, I'm going to make less money.
No, they're not gonna take from you during that calculation, no. No, the example I give is simplified.
And that's what I said, and that's why Ginger said, well, it's only a couple of pennies different, so just do 3%
Per
on
dollar or
top
something
of.
like that. Well, we didn't care again how you do it. No, my point is, it's not that Don and I agree or disagree, it's that the way this is being calculated in this one is different than the prior one and different than council's. So the officials, the elected officials, going back, if it was your intent to keep it as it was when they were running during their primary, that's one question. If it's your intent to change it, this change is a reduction off of what it was probably assumed they were running. I can't speak for any of the others, but those are your decisions. Again, I'm not advocating for anything, just clarity. We did come to council prior to the primary. I did mention on the record that if you were going to do this, it would be great if you did it before the primary. I also, Don rendered his opinion and Don and I had that discussion before the primary as well. With regard to how, this is the first time, so that you guys know, that we had an increase for the elected officials greater than 6% or greater than 3%. It's the 6%. This is the first time there was ever a reduction in the base for the union and non-union employees. So that's where the question came from. This hadn't happened before. Yeah, I think we had like a 2% increase one year. We've never had one this big, 6% like this last year.
I don't know about the two of you, but I'm comfortable with the numbers where they were as presented in the ordinance. I think we're making it too hard. Just clean and move on. Clean increase and move on.
Which is a 3%.
Let's make it easier.
You guys deliberate. I'm going to excuse myself. I think I've answered all your questions.
All right,
Comparison.
thank you.
Yep. Let us know if, when you're done, if you want to send me an email, what you guys decide or recommend. That way we can, if necessary, adjust the budget numbers.
What we'll do is we'll amend 2023-133 at the next meeting
Okay.
with anything. I mean, this is just gonna be a recommendation.
We're finishing the budget this week. So if we know the recommendation, there might be some impact from it, but I won't know till you're done. Thanks.
See you guys tomorrow.
I'm still unsure of what,
Grant, if I can be excused to go see if I can find that formula,
please.
that might be helpful.
Well, he does that.
Plus, something with the numbers that Jim gave us are higher than the legislation.
Well, understand, when we put together the legislation, the gist of it was to use this ordinance as a vehicle to ensure that we could pay the mayor,
Right.
the law director, and the auditor, and that it would get 3 readings, and 3 proper readings.
I think Brian brings up a good point. Just use those numbers that are on the current legislation.
And then initially, I told Don, don't even change the numbers at all. Just take 2018-125, change the dates, change nothing else. We'll send it to committee and figure out what dates were. And Jeff and I, in discussion with Don Essex, not Don Rasmussen, decided to make the adjustments based on his understanding of the formula. And I said, don't do this penny stuff, round it down or round it to a whole number. And that's how we got to those numbers. Doing something easy, talking about thinking that you want to look at yours, it's the same thing. Removing section 7 and merging that. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
You've got a conflict, and so this is the only place where we say, and I remember when they put this in. I mean, I think that even preceded 2018 when that thing got created. And they're basically trying to tell future councils what the mentality is here. So I think that we can just in here recommend that the law director merge section 7 into
So section
section 3.
and make it what, subsection C or whatever you want to call it. Give it its own.
And then, and then add language that says, I would take out the latter. Full-time director of law initial salary schedule starting January 1, 2024. I would take that paragraph out, and that turns into section 3, paragraph C. And then we have language that says, in essence, in the event that the law director changes or whatever, the new law director's salary will be based on this schedule. Because the only time that thing would, if Don Rasmussen is the law director and he continues on, he's paid at this 26+ year thing, and there's no problems, and it keeps going forward. That makes sense. But because this is the one position that has requirements, if Don slips on a banana peel and falls in front of a bus, and he has to be replaced,
And the replacement.
the replacement falls under this section, and then we need to state that. So they just preface this, in the event of a change in law director during the term, the new law director will be paid according to this schedule. But we were doing the easy stuff first. And that was the discussion of moving that ladder into section 3. And I understand exactly what Jim is saying. And that was that example of, for some reason, the law director, if Don as law director is unable to continue because he gets hit by a bus or hits the lottery or whatever, this ladder only comes into play with the new law director, and so we need to add. So it has to be very specific as to when that kicks in. And so we're going to merge section 3. We're going to merge that into section 3 and basically tell the law director to make it work.
Okay, so you're saying that moving section 7 into section 3.
Okay, looking at section 7,
Right,
not the first paragraph of it, the director of law shall serve.
right.
Just the part that starts full-time director of law, and then the ladder, salary ladder. Make that section 3, paragraph C.
So that it's effective as soon as if there were a new law director.
And then add,
This would automatically
Yep.
take effect
Yep.
wherever they would fit in
correct,
based on the number of years.
correct. And then we just, in the event of a change, and then we just preface in this new section 3, paragraph C, we preface it to say that in the event that there is a change in the law director, the new law director will be paid according to this schedule. And then you'd have to question, if you're in 2026 and this happens, does the ladder move up by the corresponding raises? And I would say no, it does not. This is a simplification. They get that, and then subsequent years they get the raise based on the formula. So that is going to be one of the recommendations that we'll make, and then I'll work with the law director to ensure that gets constructed into a in essence, what I'll ask him to do is have a amended 2023-133 ready to go and if we accept the committee report, here's the results of it. And if we don't accept the committee report, we'll be back to square. We'll be back here talking about this again. While we're there, so then there was, just to continue on with the ladder conversation, I know we're going out of order. Don and I had a lot of conversation about this ladder, and Don was suggesting that we look at salary surveys and adjust this ladder accordingly. And I think there's a lot of merit in that, especially since it doesn't affect the current law directors. It affects the current law director's salary is going to be set by however we define what the formula is. This is just to keep that ladder in line with current with
The current raise
Yeah.
structure.
because the theory on salary is this is the one position where you need
experience.
you need experience. I mean, and I told Don, if it was up to me, I would take the 0 to 5 years of experience salary and I'd cut it to 30,000 or less, because I don't want an attorney that's only been practicing for 2 years to be our law director, because I think that has a lot of risk to the city, and I want to try to minimize that risk. But the other income levels, at some point in time, you have to have the person that has the talent and to do the job, the skills and qualifications, and talent to do the job, and the desire to serve the community. You've got to be able to, you can't penalize them salary wise, because once they're city attorney, it's not like they're doing anything else in the legal profession. So Don, looking at that salary ladder, how and excluding conversations about 26 plus years of experience, that isn't germane, because that's the position held by the current law director. So we're really only talking other brackets there.
Yeah, and I think the conversation we had about it made sense. I understand your rationale behind it. And if you look at the salaries, I would say they're where they should be, just from doing the survey before in 2018. Because Don's salary was, so we look at quartile, so there's like the 25th, 50th, 75th, and 100th quartile. And he was in the 75th, between the 75th and 100%. So when you look at increases over time and just looking at other salaries, I think the top one is where it should be.
Okay.
And I think the other ones, if the goal is to have someone with more time, then I think I don't see a reason to change them.
Do not or do?
Do not.
Okay.
If you decide to change them, I do have the numbers that they should be changed to based on what the auditor gave me.
Well, the auditor wouldn't have, would the auditor be doing the salary surveys of people in the legal profession with 16 to 20?
No, they just added the increases. So over time, if you look at all the
Okay.
increases, because this was set, and there's never been any increases to those amounts. So they added the increases since 2018 and came
Okay.
up with new numbers. And that's all I was talking about, just adding those increases over time that would have taken place anyway. This was set. Where the other salaries have been increased based on what non-union employees get. So all elected officials get the increases that,
So what numbers what would 21 through 25 be?
I have an email with those numbers on it. Like 60 would be maybe 69, I think now. So they've just been, whatever increases we've received, whatever percentage increases that we've received since that time were built in and came up with the new numbers. But once you've set this, you can't change it again, right? You're not giving increases based on what non-union employees get. This is set.
It's
Correct.
It's a static number.
It's static.
It's static for
It's a
the
static
time
number.
of the ordinance.
Right.
Correct. But once a person enters it and starts getting that pay come the new year, they would then fall in. My view of this is that, or the way I would want this to be understood, and it's being recorded, so what we're trying to say is that it would be
After 5 years, they would move up to that next.
But on a year-to-year basis, they would not get.
I would want them.
I would want them to get
yes,
that.
yes.
Now, under the legislation, would that happen? That's my question. How
Well, we would write it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just.
Yeah. So in other words, but you're seeing this. So you're seeing this as a person with 20 years. You get a person who starts with 19 years of experience. They work for they are in the position for 4 years, so now they have 23 years of experience, and they run for a re-election and get elected. They then move into the ladder with the 21 through 25. They move into that ladder.
So you can't move up a step on that ladder until the next election.
Yeah. I never really even thought about it in that manner.
What if so if you get elected and you have, I guess Grant's example, you don't move up automatically when you reach those years of experience? Because it says years in legal service.
You would still be practicing law as law directors.
Right. So you would move up.
You would move up to the next step on the
Okay.
ladder. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the
you were
way I
saying-
read it.
That's not how you read it, though. You were saying you'd be on that step of the ladder until the next election. Is that how you were reading it?
Now you got an interesting legal thing. Can that increase? In essence, we didn't give them the raise. The raise was, the salary structure was set before they
Yeah, I mean,
took
that's,
the position.
so that's the structure. So
Yeah.
then they should get the step, I would think. Because you are meeting the requirement for years in practice.
And then once you're at 26 years, you get the last.
Yeah, you get the last step, and then you just got the yearly increase.
So, Don, are you suggesting that these brackets do not change, or that these brackets be adjusted with the raises as if they had been? You know, I would like to see
You want to see the numbers?
I would like to see the brackets for, I would like to see 16 to 20 and 21 through 25 be in that 75th percentile or do whatever that higher quartile. And if that means they need to be adjusted higher than the average raises, because we're not paying on this right now.
Right.
But I find it, I would be surprised that an attorney with 21 through 25 years that last quartile would be at 100K. I think that sounds low, especially when, and then you look at the jump from 25 years to 26 years. Right now, that's a 38K jump. It wouldn't be necessarily that entirely much, but I think we should.
So
We
in
should
other
close
words-
that gap.
So in other words, we set them what they should be right now, and then that's a static figure until we amend
Yeah.
the salary
Correct.
again.
Yeah.
I think that sounds good. Fine.
When's the last time we did a salary survey on all of this legal type position?
2018.
Now, how often do we do these surveys? Is this just like when we decide to do whatever, or do we have a set timeline for that?
Yeah, I mean for elected officials, we do it every 4 years. I've done it, I think, one time. So I did it in 28. I was part of the Ad-HOC committee, or like an advisor to the Ad-HOC committee. So I did the research on all the salaries. And so we really should have started probably last year, and then because we started in September of 2018. We had all these meetings, and then in December of 2018 is when I think the decisions were made about what cities were the closest comparators to Finley, and then where we wanted to go where the ad hoc committee wanted to go as far as salaries are concerned. I did look at the mayor and the auditor. Again, I looked at the same cities that we used in 2018 to see what the pay was, or the pay is going to be for 2024. So I do have that information if the committee would like to see that.
I'm personally not interested, because I would be very uncomfortable making a change outside of the formula on any of these three
Yeah, I wouldn't make a change.
salaries. I think the collective council thought that these three positions were going to be paid according to the formula, and so to go do a salary adjustment, a salary
Yeah,
survey
we should do that now.
at this point is
That'd be something to do,
incorrect.
I think, in either, well, at the end of the window we have here, or even next year at the earliest.
Yeah. You know, there's another point on this, and you just made it. We could go and amend.
Amend future pay raises or the ladder structure or what have you.
We can go and amend that ladder structure of 2023-133, excluding the rate that we're paying the current law director. That can be amended next year.
And yeah, because that gives us a chance to do those surveys.
What's the time requirement to do a salary survey?
Well, I mean, it depends. So with this one, when I'm looking at the mayor and auditor's salary, looking at those same cities that the committee decided were the best comparators to Findlay, it didn't take that long, but it was the right time of the year because I had to go look at council minutes. So the council minutes there, they discussed salary or proposed salaries for elected officials. So, and then the OML survey was of no use this time. Last time it was the Ohio Municipal League survey. Because for one, Finley didn't participate, and then all the other cities that we used as comparators did not submit their salaries. So I had to either call or go online and look at their council minutes, but I did get all the information on their salaries. And the reason I bring it up is because a lot has changed since 2018, especially with the mayor's salary. If you look at the comparators, there have been.
Stop. Don't care. I don't want to have a conversation that involves what the mayor's salary survey or the auditor's salary survey or the law director's salary surveys showed, because this committee doesn't want that information. I mean, you have it, keep it. That might be for the future, but it's not germane to this conversation. So
we don't want that to influence us.
Okay.
But the law director ladder, I think warrants further discussion. And so the committee, and we can reform this committee in 2024 and look at that specific question and saying that we need more information, that we do not have the time in order to legislatively adjust this.
Right.
And for the time being, and for the remote chances that we're talking that Don wins the lottery or gets hit by the proverbial bus, I think we're fine with the dollar amounts. If you're telling me you think that those numbers right there, your gut says that they're relatively close, unless you can get that email that has.
Yeah, I could go look for the email because you're talking about, I think you mentioned 21 to 25 years.
Yeah.
And how there's a big gap between that and 26 plus. So I can go grab that email and see what those numbers look like.
That would be
Maybe
great.
that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yes. Gonna take another hour to write the recommendation. Like that. Block out of those two.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, there we go.
Batten down the hatches.
Yeah. Fort Knox.
You want to dig into this,
Yeah. Pay calculation.
are these real numbers? 2022 was 6%, 2024 is 6%.
Excuse me.
Are these real numbers that 2020?
2023 was a 6% raise. 2024 was a 6% raise.
So they're both 6% raise.
You guys aren't talking about anything with CPI, are you?
No.
Okay. Worry about that. We had that years ago. I'm like, which CPI?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3, CPI 6. Yeah, no.
It looks like in the instance of 0 to 5 through 16 to 20, we're going about a 4,000 to 5,000 increase. With 20 to 25, about a $7,000 increase. And then we wouldn't touch 26 plus necessarily because that's where Don's at now. Correct?
Yeah, so that, Don, having this formula makes a lot of sense. So, Jim, are you in this meeting or not? Can I ask you questions or?
Yeah, we're here. So as long as it's not something that, if it's something I can answer, I will. Yeah.
So Don handed out this example of the formula. So now using that, I understand what you were saying about the 3 and the 6.
Yeah, this came from our office, right? Don?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one you guys got in your council packet.
Back in what, September?
Yeah, yeah, when the.
So
original one was
what I understand is why in the numbers that you presented earlier at the beginning of the meeting, doesn't it take into account the making the 2024 number based on 3% of the, the 3% versus the full?
Were you asking that question of me?
Yeah.
So you're asking me.
Was that a Rasmussen's legal opinion?
The legal opinion has stated that is the way it's to be calculated based on the way the ordinances are written.
6 instead of 3. Correct.
No. There is no 3. Get the 3 out of your head.
Understood. I
Yeah.
hear.
So there's no.
I hear. Okay. So they have a function and they say, how do we pay these people for 2024? And Don says, this is my legal opinion on how, but Don's legal opinion in our case is advisory, because we're writing an ordinance and it can be whatever the heck we want, under the guidelines that we have discussed. And I understand now we're why there's a difference, because Don Essex says, put it into the formula, and those are the numbers that came out in here. And quite honestly, I like the formula. I like it a lot. In fact, I like it so much, I think we should go run council's numbers through the formula and readjust ours. Down, because this is what, I think the intent was, this is what we were gonna do with the folks. I understand where Don's coming from, where the law director comes from, but for the sake of this ordinance, and I appreciate Jim bringing the information, but I use the numbers that are in the ordinance and wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
Meaning, we use
the formula to calculate the salaries.
Yeah. Because in essence, there's one way to say, hey, we gave them a 6% in 2024. The other way is to say, no, we really gave them about
A 3.1 or 3.01% raise.
yeah,
Year over year.
because
Effective rate.
the effective rate is that. So I would stick, I would not recommend a change on those numbers.
Agreed.
Okay. And while you were gone, what we decided to do with section 7 is we're taking out the ladder only.
Okay.
Making that paragraph C of section 3. And then I'm gonna ask the law director to create language that says, in the event of a change in the person who occupies the law director,
Yeah.
the new law director shall be paid according to this ladder.
That's great, and then if it continues, if you guys decide to have this a continuing ordinance where you don't put the dates on it, then that would continue ad infinitum, which is good, so we'd have the problem solved. Because your one continues ad infinitum, that's what this does.
That is correct.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think we can always, whenever a salary survey is done, we could always make an adjustment with the future legislation.
Or we put the pressure on us and say, next time we start a year in advance and do the salary surveys and adjust. I'm all for us being proactive. I personally do not like the autopilot on the,
Why not have a salary survey mandated every 4 years? And then we make the adjustments off that.
If I could interject something here, Mr. Russell.
yes,
Historic perspective. In the past, when council has done the salary survey, they have done it. I think you have two things that are a challenge for you. One, and I've mentioned it before, and Don and I talked about it, so I'm not going to shock you when I say it. Your HR is not an independent function in the city, and in my opinion, it should be. Second thing is, though, council, when they did the salary survey, did it independent of the administration. The only people that were consulted were the auditor's office and then the salary consultant, so that council had an objective perspective. And the reason that happened was what has happened with your pay ordinance over time. It was intended to create two paths, and one path disappeared. Those two paths over the last 12 years have been intermingled. And the intent of the ordinance when council did it back then has been gone, but council hasn't had an active role in the development of the salary ordinance in the 12 years. So just food for thought and a historic perspective.
That makes sense, because then we could mandate salary survey, get the independent, the consultant, every 4 years, we have that in there. I think that's
I
probably.
don't think you need to do that with legislation. You simply do that by calling a committee and doing it. In this case, we missed it. I mean, we simply missed it. This has been quite interesting.
Sorry to muddy it with that
No, I,
stuff like that.
your section 7 thing, as soon as you said it, I understood.
Yep.
That's,
Made a lot of
that
sense.
was,
Clear up any ambiguity there.
we would have had a pile of poo.
Hey, what do you want to make? Come on in. You guys did hear it. Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too, Jim.
See you, Jim.
Yes, you too, Don.
So this makes sense. And so the recommendation, really what we're gonna talk about is structure. The section 7 thing and the 3. And then the recommendation that an ad hoc committee be formed in January of 2024 to look at the law director salary ladder and including with that a salary survey. So you know this is coming. If you want to start gathering
For the
information.
law director.
Looking at these, at the numbers that Don presented with just the ladder increase.
No, that's not using the formula either.
No, that's,
No.
no, that's the,
That's
But it
just
would
the
be-
straight, the straight would increase.
The increases, and at the top, you'll see
Mhm.
that, it's the increases of 4.55,
Yep.
1.31, 6%, 6%.
Yep.
so
But
if we
you-
use the formula, the 21 to 25 years would be 116. It's 116 at $3. So let's just round that to 116. The round numbers are great in legislation.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that by just taking the 2022 figure, multiplying it times 1.03, taking that result, multiplying by that times 1.06, 116.
You're gonna get close enough.
You got it.
All right, so we have a recommendation to.
Wait, I'm doing it for. The 16 through 20 would come out to $101.71. 101 sounds really good. Do we want to do 11 to 15 years?
Somewhere around what, 94,000 or so?
Mr. Math in his head. 94.8. 95.
95.
I would be comfortable making changes to the ladder of those three things to give us time to evaluate. We can always adjust it down because we're, looking to make sure that we stay right. So that would be the 11 to 15 branch goes to $95,000. The 16 to 20 branch goes to $101,000. The 21 to 25 goes to $116,000, and those numbers seem better to me. And I'm fine with the big jump from 0 to touching 0 to 5 and 6 to 10 for reasons we've stated. So
It makes sense to me.
does it? That's what. Yeah. I'm looking at you for a.
Yeah.
as a-
And just to be clear with the committee, I did not use the formula, I just did 3%.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that's clear
Yeah.
for the auditor and the mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's and the numbers. Quite honestly, the numbers are
The difference is minimal.
yeah. So we recommend. Amended legislation be created. Which includes creation of Don, if you want to take off, you don't have to be here to watch.
You
See
don't
you
watch
guys
the
later.
sausage you're being made with this.
Thank you very much. And,
Thank you.
and I think you can take it as a given that, yes, we are gonna come back and want that salary information, do the salary survey using the same cities, because I think those were picked those were picked as similar, that we did our performance audits against.
Yeah, we went through a lot to figure out which cities to use. The committee did, so I think that's pretty solid.
Okay.
Pretty close.
Yeah, and
population.
if you want to do it for law director, that would be appreciated.
What were the cities? What, like Lima, Elyria?
Lima, well, the committee decided to only use statutory cities, so
Statutory.
Lima was one of them, but we took it out. We took several cities out, so it was Lancaster, Marion,
Okay.
Newark, Warren,
Okay.
Ohio. So those were the cities. They're pretty similar to statistically. See you later.
Hey, have a good one.
Thank you. Okay, creation of section 3, paragraph C to include the salary ladder, section 7, and language to indicate. I'm trying to let it, how to indicate it is for, it only comes into effect if there is a change in law, if there's a change in occupant of the position.
And then it's, I think we use subject to that schedule, stair step schedule.
Yeah. Include salary ladder from section 7 and language to indicate the ladder is only used if there is a change in the person. Only used to. So this is why they always do stuff to every other line. It's only used to set. Ladder to be changed. As follows, as described. What do you pay a person who has 20 years and 6 months of law practice? Is it 20 years or 21?
I would say it's the 20 years till you hit 21.
That's how I was looking at it. The fact that we just set it on in our legal record.
Yep.
Do we want to sunset this thing? I say for now, yes, don't change it. And if we want to remove the sunset, we can do
We
that.
can do that in a future.
Yeah.
If we can tackle this thing early,
Early in the new term, yeah.
and then we can amend this one and that could be a part of one
We
of
can
the
always
changes.
amend that salary.
Yeah.
We recommend including amended legislation be created. We recommend amended legislation be created, including number one, creation of, or
Hey Grant, how about we just say we recommend amending, what is that? Ordinance number 2023-133. (2023-133)
as
as follows.
file. Perfect.
Ooh, that's wordy.
5,000 words.
Yeah.
Right on the fly.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh,
No, I get it. I'm just.
We recommend amending. Can tell I was in the South. Amended. You know how quickly your language gets soft talking to it softens out. It's not that it's soft isn't weak, it just softens when you're. These folks are from southern Mississippi. We had this waitress that was she was awesome. And you just all of a sudden you feel your language just the edges
coming off. Yeah.
come off. It's really. We recommend amending ordinance 2023-133 as follows. One, creation of section 3, paragraph C to include the salary ladder from section 7 and language to indicate the ladder is only to set the initial salary of a new law director in the event there is a change in the person holding the law director position. That the ladder changed as follows with the numbers that we had, 95K, 101K, 116K. We recommend the creation of an ad hoc committee, in January 2024 to further evaluate the salary ladder for the law director position.
That sounds good.
I would make that motion.
I will second that.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Seeing as though there is no other business with our committee, I will call this meeting to a close at 5:39 p.m.